Oh, and here we are. Good one today. Handling rejection and how do you dig yourself out of that hole of despair, of rejection, bouncing back stronger. Ryan, how are you this morning, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Happy Halloween, brother. Happy
Oh,
Halloween. I
that's
thought that
right.
was,
Yes, the
yeah, I thought that was
31st
like your
today.
Dracula voice, man. Like that.
I
I don't know what
know.
happened there.
I've been up all night coughing. It's been
Oh,
it's I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the because we just turned cold up here and yeah, I don't know what's happening, but we will see how that all unfolds, buddy. So handling rejection, pal. This is I don't know about you. Well, let me ask you this question first. So when you first got in this industry, um, how did you handle rejection? How did you handle the no's?
same way I handle them now. I think it wasn't. I knew I was getting into sales, and to preface everybody, I worked in sales before, right? So for me, like, let's say if I when I first got into my first sales role, I had like pretty good coaches, and that was in a different industry in the telecom. But no, it's the same way that I handle rejection now. I love it. I think it's the best, and I don't believe that, when one person says no, you're getting close like to the next yes, like the next person. I truly believe, especially in logistics, your best customers are going to be the ones who said no like right away. And I think those are the ones that you actually build a relationship with. The customers that said yes right away on the calls, they put us on lead lists. They were transactional. They were like, you knew what to get out of that. But the ones who
Yeah.
said no, like try again, you did an RFP, you didn't win anything. Then you went again next year and you kept going, keep plugging away, keep plugging away, keep plugging away. And I think the chase of it was so much great. So for me, handling rejection in sales, I think it's a part of it. It's crucial. It's necessary. I would say that it's mandatory, it's necessary, because I don't know anybody that's like, you look at baseball players, they don't bat 100, 1,000, they most a great baseball player is like 1 for 3. Think about that, right? Like Vladdy Guerrero
Hmm.
can do like 330 and people will be like, oh my god, his on base percentage is so amazing, but he's not batting 100%, so yeah, I have to say, like, I handle rejection the same way. In terms of that, it was just working those relationships, brother. What about you? Tell me about you.
That's
How you
actually
handle
really
rejection?
nice to hear. So I've gone through phases in my professional career. When I first started, it was like nothing. It was I would hear no, I'd be like, okay, move on, and I'd move on and I move on. I found and in preparation for today's show, I really started thinking about a week ago, saying, like what did I really go through
Mm,
when we look at rejection and where did I learn about the harms of rejection and then to avoid rejection or to ignore rejection or to think about it in a different way. And it all started when I started making money. Before I was making money in this industry, being a new guy, just making sales calls, trying to put numbers on the board. Rejection didn't mean anything. When I started making money and I started thinking, and I don't know if you've ever thought this, but I would get like an RFP in and I would add up all the lanes that we were quoting on. And then I would submit the RFP and they'd come back and they'd say, okay, you're first place in this lane, this lane, this lane, this lane. And I'm like, okay, perfect. And I started adding up the profit on the lanes when I was in first. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to make this profit. I've got to kind of apply this many people to it. It's going to be this much work and then not get the business in the end. Um, to me, I found that started hitting me hard when it was hitting my wallet. And a couple of things with rejection that I realized. And the first one is rejection hurts more when your pipeline's not full and when you're not consistently prospecting. Number two is I said to myself, how do I not take this personally? Because as soon as money came into play, it became personal. Like I started looking at it, Ryan, as I mean, also I was what 22 at the time, 23 at the time. So I really wasn't, you know, in the head space I'm in now. I was mature, I think, but I wasn't in the head space. And it's like you want that new vehicle or you want that new house or you want this. And it's like you saying no is hindering that. So it's pissing me off. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And then I realized um rejection. And I don't know what it was one day, but one day I woke up and I said, okay, I'm literally taking where somebody else is, an inbound phone call to somebody who's probably had a system set up for months or years or decades. And I'm getting frustrated because they're saying no to me right away. And I realized I cared so much about what I could do. And I believed so hard in what I could do for customers that I was not only shocked, but pissed off when they didn't want me to show them because I knew I could help them. And I remember my old VP, Mark, really helping me out with this. He said, Dan, he says, one of the big things, he says, think about it like this, you know, we get rejection every day in our lives on so many different levels. He goes, you're on your way home and you call your spouse and ask if you want pizza for dinner and they say no. He goes, that in essence is a rejection. You're getting a no. And he said, how do you make business rejection like the pizza? And it was a huge learning experience for me because I've made phone calls before, right? I've called Christine and said, hey, like, listen, do you guys want this for dinner? No, I don't really feel like that, or I'm not a fan. Okay, well, let's make this. And we don't think of it as rejection. But when it comes to business, it's like this whole other, you got to get through no to get to yes, or, you got to, and it to me, I looked at it and I said, like, how do I avoid even getting in that position? And so that's what I started focusing on. But no, I've been through probably 3 different levels. Like I think it's extremely rare for somebody to say what you just said, where it's kind of like you handled it from day one the same way. It's not personal. I mean, I think this is where rejection takes a big toll on us is we tend to take it personal, right? It's like, what did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? What did I, all these kind of things that go on in our heads and we've talked about this many times before, so we won't get into it, but it's like something totally different is happening and we're just assuming it's because of X, Y, and Z with us.
Yeah, I think that could be like for me, so that I can be prepared for the show and just my own logistics career. I talk with other like sales reps in the industry, whether they're be rookies or like some intermediate or like complete rock stars, right? And I get from the phase of like it's kind of completely switched. As soon as it became like a shipper's market, a lot of reps have kind of gone to, hey, if you want me, okay. If you don't want me, it's cool. I'll go find somebody else. Instead of kind of begging for that freight or like like holding on to rejection quite a bit. I would at least think in these times, at least the people that I kind of talk to and include myself, that hey, if a shipper comes up to me right now and we do quite a bit of work and they're like, hey, we don't want to work with you anymore, then I'm like, all right, cool. Like, let's figure out if there's something salvageable here. And even if it's a new prospect, if they don't want to work with me, it's just the timing, right? And understanding that we have like the access to so many shipping managers that just come on like amazing podcasts like ours, and they just say that it's just the wrong time, but we'll get in contact with you eventually, or maybe the right time will be. I've just got to put out so many fires. And when you're talking about taking it personal, I don't think I've never talked to a shipping manager or a prospect or anything like that who's taken it personal with me, right? Saying like, all you brokers suck, or something true, where it's just, hey, you just politely, hey, I'm really busy, I'm being ghosted. And I think like, from our end, from what we kind of look like, sometimes we can take that personal, but we got to detach from that. But I feel like the newer reps are doing that because I'm learning quite a bit from like the conversation that I have, that they're happy with the customers that they have. A lot of reps are kind of moving from, instead of having those like 20 to 30 clients who give them $1,000 GP a month, they're gonna make that into like 6 to 12, and truly build out those 6 to 12 relationships, right? But coming back to like, if you are somebody who's going through this right now, where you feel like like everybody's saying no to you and things like that, you got to test everything. You got to A/B test, and whether you're in tech sales or logistics sales, you look at those 90 days of what did my action look like. Like Dan, you mentioned earlier that the no hurts more when you have no pipeline. Well, what's the cure to that? Go make some calls, go make some emails, go network,
Build the pipeline.
build a pipeline, period. It's not that hard, right? It's just that people just don't want to do the work. And I think the part in this message where it says here, bouncing back stronger, the way that you bounce back stronger is by doing, and by doing is building up that pipeline.
Yeah. And I also think, and Chad turned me on to this process. I never really knew what it was, but I knew there was a way where for lack of a better term, Ryan, I had to maintain control of the emotions during a call. And what I mean by that, Chad calls it gamifying your sales. And so what I started to do is I started to implement my qualifying process. So in essence, I'm choosing the supplier just as much as the supplier is choosing me.
Yeah.
And you know, when we have, I'm going to use the word power, and I know it's probably not the proper word for it, Ryan, but when we have the ability in our hand when we're making calls or when we're sending emails or when we're doing video messaging, saying, I work best with this type of person, right? And I've felt ever since I started using it, rejection has just gone out the window. Where I've said to every prospect, I work well with this type of person. Does this represent you? Like, do you see the same thing? Do you believe in the same things? And if they were to say no, I would always follow up with, well, I'd love to ask why. Like, what is it that, you know, you're presently happening that you don't believe in these things? And so I kind of turned it from moving forward or learning. And what I did there is when I did that, when I started to qualify, when I started to try and learn on every call that I knew wasn't going to move forward,
Mm-hmm.
I felt rejection just disappear because it's not a, and maybe it was the clarity of it's not me, it's their position, it's where they're at, it's their company, it's their goals, it's their mandates, it's their, you know, I look at it often and I say, you know, why is it that you're not interested in talking to anybody? It's just, no, well, I've had a relationship for 7 years. And you have, as a salesperson, I believe you have to sit back and go, wow, I'd love customers like that had the same conversations with XYZ company that's calling right now, you know. So that's not a rejection to you as a salesperson. That's like, this person believes in long-term relationships. It's kind of like, wow, that's a really cool customer to have. I got to go find myself one of those. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I found when we don't ask questions around rejections, you know, the who, what, why, when, you know, give me your insights as to how that makes it better in your company. And we don't fully understand that. Those of you that take rejection hard can really defuse that impact on your confidence, on your emotional state, on everything, if you just start asking a few questions. And those
Yeah.
questions are simple and they'll give you so many answers, right? Like everyone that says no, I ask, okay, is there a specific reason why? Was it my messaging? Was it, you know, just not the right time? And I was sharing with somebody yesterday that, you know, I'll get kind of 1 out of every 100 come back to me, especially on email. Like 1 out of every 100 will come back and say, well, this is where we're at and this is what we're doing and kind of this and this, or this is the messaging that I didn't like. So for me, that's still great feedback, right? And I take that feedback and I allow that feedback to be the fuel instead of the water on my fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the one thing too that I want everybody listening to understand is that you're not obligated to feedback. Right. So
No.
it's up to like the shipping manager or whatever product you're selling if they want to do that for you. But you've got to look at it and kind of there's so many times we're going to beat the horse about like looking at your messaging, look at your videos, look at your calls and stuff like that. But you know, you really have to I think what helped me in my career to handle rejection was, you know, role playing. You know, talk with like whether it even be in the mirror, you know, like role play your phone calls, role play your video messages, role play everything else because, you know, you're going to start role playing rejection as well. So in logistics, people are going to say, hey, you know, I know for myself, I don't, full transparency, I'm in Canada. I don't really call US companies for US to US freight. A, because I don't think that I can really service it. And B, when you talk to a US company, like they're so anti-broker that, you know, you have to be asset-based just to kind of get in the door with some companies. But that's in my experience that I've found. But, you know, I found that once you get in the door, like the freight is not really that good. So it's just like you did all this like legwork for like no reason. But when you have those conversations with like-minded people and you understand that they're handling rejection as well, and what helped me with the shipping managers is understand that, you know, they're probably getting rejected from their sales guys too. You know, because like sales guys really control the freight. There was one company that I work with. They do like fiberboard and stuff like that, and the salespeople actually control the freight. You know, they sell it and then they tell whoever they want to use it, or they set the price in terms of, okay, this is what I have in it, and logistics manager, go find a carrier, go find a situation for this. So coming back to getting rejected in sales, it has to come within. Like if you're not, and I'm not going to say that you need to be like totally confident in yourself. You have to be confident in the process that, there's long burns, there's slow burns. And we're, as Dan and I always kind of say, the harder you work, the luckier you're going to get.
Yeah, it's you know, I think it's putting a process in place, Ryan, and working that process, right? Like if we get into why rejection hurts because we don't have a pipeline,
Yeah.
right? And then we get into, well, why don't we have a pipeline? Then we get into, well, I was busy with operations day 1 and 2, and then I kind of fell behind. So I procrastinated on day 3 and I didn't sell on day 4. And day 4 turned into 9, turned into 15, turned into 20, turned into 45. And now all of a sudden I haven't sold for 2 months.
Yeah, and for everybody in the US,
Happens
it's getting
fast.
there. It happens so fast, especially people. I know, Dan, there's so many people like with American Thanksgiving coming up. They're gonna be like, yeah, I'm not prospecting that week. Freight doesn't move on those 2 weeks. And then they lead that into Christmas. No one's gonna be picking over Christmas. And they're like, New Year, new me, January 1st. And then you look at that now, that's 2 months, 60 days. And I don't know, Dan, I don't know about you, but I know for my logistics, I can close customers and I can build a good book of business. Like I can add maybe 2 or 3 customers, good paying customers with good freight in about 60 days. So I can
Yeah.
add that. I know that's my turnaround for closing a client, getting on board and start moving, doing the trials, doing all that stuff. So why would you waste those 60 seconds? Like why wouldn't you want to go into 2024 with a huge bump of like 2 or 3 customers already if you have 0 customers or whatever your thing is, and then let me add to that and add to momentum as well.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. And what you just said, I've heard a million times over.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh yeah. Like I had just even the other day, somebody said to me, well, after the 15th of November, everything dies. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, everything dies till January. I'm like, no, like, no. I go, no, like, what do you mean? Like your specific customer's business? He goes, no, the whole industry. I'm go, no. I go, November 15th, like Christmas trees are picking up huge. Like there's a huge industry, like snow shovels, like all these things that road salt's still going a mile a minute right now, trying to fill up all the different area. Like all of there's a ton of things that are moving. I'm like, oh, he goes, oh, I just got told from somebody that like, after the 15th of November, like everything just dies off. I said, some industries, like if they've stocked their winter, their wait or their Christmas rush, they're waiting for the OS&D and the returns and the restocking. But I said, no, like you like ramp it up because people I've found anyways, again, in the years I've been selling, I've had some of the best conversations closer to Christmas, just general conversations.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not expecting as of the 20th of December somebody to switch service providers and put me in the mix as of December
Planting seeds.
21st,
Yeah.
right? But I do have much better conversations. People I find are in a much better mood. They're calming down. They're kind of years over. Like for a lot of companies, as soon as that quote unquote Christmas rush or holiday rush happens, if they haven't hit their mark, they're not going to. So it's not like they're scrambling to hit the mark. It's like, okay, we missed it by this much. We're gonna kind of, where we got the Christmas rush, we got some specials coming up after Christmas. Well, like I find just everybody's demeanor just goes like drops a few levels where they're more interested in a conversation. And that candid conversation can lead to great things down the road. So
Yeah.
don't stop. I mean, the reality is you're going to start facing more and more people on vacation, taking whatever US couple of days off at US Thanksgiving and then, holidays towards Christmas. But still, I mean, I look at it and I say, I go back to and I know we kind of jumped a lot off topic here, but I think it kind of is in all the same realm of that 360-degree understanding. It's, maybe ask them the questions, right? Like, what a better way to debunk this rejection piece in your head than asking people, like, when you say this, like, what does it really mean to you?
Yeah.
Because it is, and it's probably just the fact that, you're getting rejected because there's been 15 people that have called this person already and wasted their time.
Mhm.
And you're just happen to be the 16th. I mean, it happens like that as well. And you just called it a bad time, bad timing.
There it is, and with the timing, and like we always talk about what you can control and doing the outputs, and like Dan says, like what Dan just said, it's gold in terms of rejection, right? So don't put in your negative mindset, like like I know there's going to be certain places that you look at, it's like, oh, only call customers on Wednesdays between 8 and 9, all that stuff. Do what works for you, man, and at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you actually do the work, like you're gonna see success from it. You're gonna have rejection, and for me, I love getting rejected, even right now at where I'm at in my career right now, because it means that, I'm not for everybody. And that's
Yep.
the one thing that we have to be, right? And just think about like all the sports. If you're a sports fan, think of all the sports analogies, right? Nobody shoots 100, like nobody, like I think, what was it? Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors last night. He went for 9 of 20 last night. Imagine if he went 20 for 20, right? And it's never really happened, right? So you have to take those shots, because like those 9 shots that went in, they helped them. Well, they lost, but they could have
They
used
put
that 20
points
for
on the
20.
board. They put
Yeah,
points on the
they
board.
put points on the board. But
Right,
yeah, that
and
was
that's
awesome.
what it is, Ryan. It's about those points on the board, and it's about the, you know, I say this: if you lead with the exact individuals that you work the best with,
Mhm.
what you do best, you lead with that. If there's a no, then you probably don't want that individual in your customer base right now, anyways.
No, definitely not.
Right? Like I've had those customers where I didn't get rejected. And a month in, I wish I got rejected.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I don't know if you've ever had those types of customers, Ryan, or what, but I could tell you, I mean, sometimes when the phone rang, I would look and I'd go, oh my God. And full transparency, there's been times I didn't answer. I pulled a traffic manager and I didn't answer.
Mhm.
And it's just because they're so difficult to deal with. They don't see value. And I remember sitting there one time going, why? Like, why am I doing this to myself?
Mhm.
Because I was afraid to go after the companies I wanted, or I'm afraid to say, I'm really good at this. You should really trust me on this. And or I'm afraid to say, hey, I do this is and I knew what it was. I mean, in the end, I ended up realizing it is because everybody I called has freight. This was what was drilled into my head. Everybody you call is freight. So like there's no way you shouldn't get business off of everybody. And I think it's the wrong way to approach it. It's everybody might have freight because if they're manufacturing, they have freight. Now, whether you're the right person to move it or they're the right person to deal with are two completely different things. And if you pay attention to that source, I think you can mitigate a lot of the challenges and a lot of the frustration and a lot of the self-doubt that comes with rejection. Right? Just person picks up the phone, they're cranky, they're an arsehole, they, like not interested and hangs up the phone. Do you really want to work with that person? I mean, imagine
I
even
mean,
if
you
they,
could, you could want to though. Like at the end of the day, somebody could just be having a bad day, right? And I
well,
think
exactly.
that's where it has to you have to give it over time. If they're doing that like consistency all the time, then yeah, definitely. But don't judge it based off like the first few interactions, because all you're trying to do is really create a pattern interrupt, right? So
Yeah, and I mean, and I would disagree with that, which is why I love this. Because I would kind of go once. If they did it the second time, I'd be like, I'm not interested. Because even if they started warming up, if I mess up, is this the way they're going to act? And I've always looked at it like that, Ryan, where we've all had bad days, but if I catch you like 2 weeks in a row on a bad day, then you're probably having more bad days than good days. And do I really want to be involved with it? Right.
yeah.
So it's interesting that so how many times would you then go back to the individual before you'd say like, I don't know if I want to deal with this person?
Well, no, I don't. I don't. So like I don't agree with that completely, because it's okay. So it's about the person and about the business, right? And I've
Yep.
never dealt with assholes. I might have dealt with one, but it was like I stuck with it because the freight was really good and it never stopped. But it was a cool thing for me what I got out of it. But no, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, that no one's you're not obligated to somebody picking up the phone or wanting to work
Hmm.
with you, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm kind of always being a student and being that guide and being that true like sales professional that I look at, I don't like judge them. Okay, he was great today. I don't. I don't know. I don't look at that. I don't really care. Like how they answer. Like if you were to be like, "Hey, good morning," and they don't answer, it's just like, okay, well, let's get to the business. Like we're here to talk business. Can I help you? Can I not? And if I can help them, no matter the personality traits, and realistically, here's what usually happens. Like a lot of these like logistics managers, same thing with sales reps, they don't stay on their roles long. They get promoted, they get other activities, they go to a different company and things like that. So I don't want to base that interaction based off of like let's give it a month. Let's say I call them every month and we're not doing the business yet and they're kind of pushing me away and stuff like that. I'll do the breakup email and things like that, but maybe I'll just reach out to them in like 60 days, and set that up. I don't know. I find like for myself, I don't take anything personal, especially when it comes to sales, because it's not that serious, like you can build that relationship with them. And if I can help them, I can help them. If I can't, I can't. And then we kind of go our separate ways. But I'm still going to put a touch out in like 60 days saying like, hey, have things changed? Like a great example, there was one beverage company in the States. They were just strictly in the States only. They do an energy drink and there just wasn't a fit for us. They were US to US and all that
Yep.
stuff. Nothing was working with there. And then I got an ad a couple weeks ago that they're coming to Canada. So who do you think I hit up like as soon as I saw that? I was like, oh my God, you guys are coming to Canada. He's like, oh my God, we're coming to Canada. And you're starting to move those conversations, right? So even and he might have been a bit cold at me at the beginning and things like that, but at the end of the day, they start to warm up, and it's just human nature. Nobody hates their job. Nobody wakes up to say, hey, how am I going to screw with the prospecting guy who's calling, who's doing their job, right? I think people are just going through different things and they're living life.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I can't wait to, curse at the salesperson that calls me today or all that. But statistically, 77% of the people at work actually do hate their jobs. And that's a stat that's like,
Where are
it's
you getting
actually
that
gone
from?
down from 85. So statistically in the US, they've done many polls about people
I'm always
hating
funny
their
about these
job.
polls, Dan, because like I always
Mhm.
see these polls and all these statistics, and I'm like, who the hell are they actually asking? Because I know
So I
you haven't
think
been
they
asked.
ask like a
I haven't
thousand
been
people
asked.
and then they
Yeah, we
average
haven't
it
been
out
asked
over.
anything, and we've been on this earth for like so. That's why I
Yeah.
always love like when they say
Yeah.
survey says or stats, and it's just like, who are the people are you like waiting down the street, or sending out these emails? Like I'm always interested to who does this polling because it's never
Yeah.
us. It's never us.
I've never been asked for a poll.
Yeah, yeah,
Never have I been stopped on the street and said, "Hey, listen, we're doing a poll." And I
yeah,
mean, maybe it's because I live out in the country. I don't live in a city somewhere, and maybe other people have. But yeah, I think they. I mean, I would hope they would do over 1,000, but I think because to put out a national stat like that,
yeah.
um, that's I mean, maybe it's big data, Ryan. I don't know. I don't know how they came up with it, but I look at it and I remember years ago in speaking with people and the amount of people that complain about the companies that pay them was astronomical. Like
Mm,
when I would travel anywhere, we would sit normally when we would go into companies, my boss and I would go sit in the cafeteria and eat lunch or something. Like we would do that kind of stuff. And what you hear around you is just incredible when it comes to people being unhappy. And I've said for ages, I mean, like, why would you do that to yourself? But anyways, that's a topic for another day. But what do you want to close out with here for handling rejection? Ryan, take it away.
yeah, handling rejection. It happens to everything. It's just not in sales. It's just in life. You're going to bounce back. You're going to be able to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and understand like looking at what you do daily. Look at your messaging, look how how you're perceiving it, your body language. Always assume that it's always your fault, and then you kind of peel back and actually take ownership and responsibility. So when you make 10 calls and 8 of them don't answer, then one person answers and they tell you to go F off or they're not interested or something like that, do another 10, then do another 10, do another 10, because nothing beats volume. So I think when it comes to rejection, you have to just dive into the pool. Nobody can stop rejection from happening. You're going to get declined on that mortgage thing that you approved for, your credit card. You're going to get declined on, hey, if you want to go for sushi or pizza or whatever it want to be. But I think honestly, when it comes to like rejection itself, it's a part of life. So I not assume, make it mandatory that you should be getting rejected. And then process your sales, man. You're gonna crush it. Once you can handle those, you're gonna crush it. And the cool thing with being rejected is that there's always gonna be new things that you learn. Like even Dan and I are very experienced. We get our rejections every single day, and they're new things, and they're new conversation starters. They're new conversation points for different people. So everybody go out there and get rejected.